Hello everybody, it's Super Koopa over here, and welcome to my Mario Kart World 1 anniversary video. Today, Mario Kart World officially turns 1 year old. It has been 1 year since Mario Kart World has released, and so much has changed. Or maybe not, depending on how you look at it. But today, I want to be focusing on one thing, the tracks. So, there are a total of 30 tracks in Mario Kart World. And last year, I ranked each one of them, all 30 of them, into different tiers. Now, over the course of the 2025 and to now, in 2026, my opinion has changed of each course, and today I'm going to be re-ranking all 30 courses in Mario Kart World. So without further ado, let's get to the ranking. Alright, let's establish some rules quickly of how I want to rank these courses. I have 3 things in mind. 1. The music. How often would I listen to this music and do I enjoy it more than others? 2. The gameplay. How well does this track play? Does it have a unique feature that other tracks don't? And 3. The design. Is there something about this track that's very eye-catching to me that I love a lot? Alright, let's get to the ranking now. Alright, let's start with the first course in the game. So for this ranking, I'm going to be going in order, starting with Mario Bros. Circuit and all the way to Rainbow Road. Okay, so for Mario Bros. Circuit, I want to state that I don't want to rank this one too harshly, considering it is the first course in the game, and mostly the starter courses aren't the most exciting. However, I do want to rank it still pretty fairly, as like the rest of the courses in the game. Okay, so for Mario Bros. Circuit, I put it in the B tier for the reasons I just said, because it is the starting course, and you know, there's not much to expect from a starting course. It's got the basic necessities for getting the players ready for what's to come later in the game. For this course specifically, it's got a few spots for rail grinding and smaller walls for wall riding, which are the basic mechanics and the new features for Mario Kart World. So, I feel like this track overall does a good job of getting that done, and does pretty good at that. So, as for the course design overall, I think it's pretty neat and definitely a new take on the starting course. Most of the starting courses are usually set in a circuit or stadium, and of course this is a Mario Bros. Circuit. However, the theme and design and overall atmosphere is completely different, which I definitely like, and is definitely a new take on the starting course. The music itself is pretty entertaining. I do think I like it, and I think it works for a starting course. Definitely gets the player hyped up for what's to come. Would I listen to it all the time? Not necessarily, but I think it's definitely gets the job done and definitely really a good song to listen to. Alright, let's move on to the next track. Up next is Crown City. Crown City was always one of my top favorite courses in Mario Kart World when the game launched. And to this day, well, it still remains in the top spot for one of my favorite courses in Mario Kart World. For this track, I put it into the A tier. And why specifically the A tier? Well, of course I'll get into your reasons, but the number one thing is the different layouts. Crown City has multiple different layouts and routes that players can take. In the Versus race, players can choose Crown City as an individual course and not traveling to it, and you can travel through different routes of Crown City. In the Mushroom Cup, players will travel along the rooftop section for Crown City. In the Shell Cup, however, players will then travel along the beach section. Traveling to Crown City from different other courses will lead you to a water section. This is why I love Crown City so much, because of the different layouts. Sadly, they didn't do something similar to how they did with the Mario Kart Tour City courses in the Booster Course Pass, combining every route and each lap changing. But of course you can still play these tracks depending on where you're coming from, or depending on choosing it in Versus Race. So that's specifically why I love Crown City a lot. The next thing is the design. So I love this track's design because there's so much to see and so much to do, and with the changing laps in the Versus Race or traveling from different courses, there's so much to see and so many different sites you can explore on each route. That's why I love Crown City a lot, because there's so many different things you can see and do throughout each route. And lastly, the music. I love Crown City's theme. It has been a personal favorite, and I have listened to it non-stop, and I still listen to it to this day. Why do I love Crown City's music so much? Well, for starters, let's talk about the intro. The intro to Crown City just before approaching Crown City, it really does feel like a huge build-up to the final course itself. It really feels like you're about to enter a big bustling city, and then the Crown City theme itself really does capture that vibe of a big bustling hyperactive city, and that's why I really love it. So, that's my ranking for Crown City. Let's move on to the next track. Alright, our next track is Whistlestop Summit. So this track has a lot of technical elements to it, including the rail grinding mechanics. So for that reason, I've decided to put it in the A tier alongside Crown City. So like I said, there's a lot of rail grinding, and I mean a lot of rail grinding potential in this track. There are the train tracks which you can rail grind along, there are the railings that surround the course, and there are a few other things around the course that you can wall ride on as well. So that's why I feel like this track is really fun and definitely ranks in a high spot for me at least. There's a lot of different smaller shortcuts you can take, of course, which definitely makes the track a lot more fun, and using your items strategically makes it fun too. So, the design of the course. Well, I think it's pretty neat. You start at the bottom of the summit, and then you can definitely see the top of the summit as you start the race. Climbing up to the very top is so much fun, and it definitely feels like a climb to the top of the mountain, and then you head back down to do it all over again. So that's definitely really fun. It's definitely fun to see this course. You can definitely see it's a lot higher up in comparison to the first two courses we've just mentioned. So it definitely feels like it's a real summit, and definitely a big climb up to the top of the mountain. So the music for this course. Well, it's not particularly my favorite, and the build-up doesn't feel as grand as Crown City as I'd mentioned before, but the track music overall definitely fits the vibe, and it really feels like you're out in the Wild West, chugging along the train tracks. So that's my ranking for Whistlestop Summit. The next track we have is DK Spaceport, which is the last course of the Mushroom Cup. So in my original ranking, I praised this track for its unique idea, but I really didn't take into consideration any of the other things. I really just put it up for a higher ranking because it was such a cool design and concept. It's a unique take on Donkey Kong Arcade into a track form, and I really do like that. I think, again, it's a cool idea in concept. Now, for the gameplay overall though, which is probably one of the biggest things for me at least, this track really doesn't feel like it's got much going for it in terms of gameplay. Yes, there's a few obstacles here and there in different laps, but the track overall is just a simple back and forth, similar to Excitebike Arena from Mario Kart 8. There really isn't much going on. Yes, there's obstacles, but they really aren't that hard to dodge. And by the time you reach the end of the course, aside from the final lap, the difficulty really decreases, as there's almost next to nothing in the track itself, no obstacles whatsoever. So yes, while it's a cool idea, I think it's really neat. But overall, gameplay-wise, there isn't much going on with the track, so it really does not feel like that an exciting track. It's, once again, just a back and forth straight line, aside from the starting, and the end is really just, once again, there's not much going on with that. But yeah, the music itself isn't too bad. Each lap has a different theme, so the music will change depending on the lap you're on, which is pretty cool, pretty neat. But the lead up from just before entering DK Spaceport really doesn't feel that hype. There really isn't too much going on with the intro music right before entering the course, so it's really not that exciting. So for this all reasons, I've decided to put DK Spaceport into the C tier. Alright, let's move on to the next track. The next track is Desert Hills. This one originated in Mario Kart DS. So, let's talk about the track. Overall, there really isn't too much going on with this track. It really doesn't have much going for it, really, in my opinion at least. In comparison to its DS counterpart, there are a lot of things that were completely changed in comparison. So for the starters, the Pokies were completely removed entirely from the track in place of the Moais from Super Mario Land, which is pretty neat and definitely a neat touch. So you can definitely tell that the course got a complete overhaul in terms of its design, which is pretty neat. But really, there isn't much going on with the course. There's not too much happening. There's a lot of flat land, which is pretty much what the original one was. But I feel like the original one definitely had a lot more sort of elevation and terrain, and definitely, especially by the end, there was a lot of twisting, turning paths. And yes, there's still the twisting, turning paths, but it definitely feels a lot more open. That's why I don't like this one as much, because it feels a lot more open in comparison to its DS counterpart. Especially in Mario Kart Wii, it was made as a retro track, and that one still doesn't compare to this one in Mario Kart World, at least in my opinion. There's a small glider ramp, as you can see right here, which really doesn't do much to the course itself. In terms of the design, I honestly, I think I do like the design. It's pretty neat what they did with it, but again, the track just kind of falls down to based off of its gameplay, because there really isn't much, and it feels way too open, and it's really easy to avoid a lot of things. The music is, well, it hasn't been one of my personal favorites. Like DK Spaceport, the build-up doesn't feel as grand. The music itself isn't too bad. I definitely like the new instrumentation they did with it, so it's pretty neat with that. But again, the course really doesn't strive too much in any sort of category for me, so for that reason alone, I've decided to put it in C tier alongside DK Spaceport. The next track we have is Shy Guy Bazaar. This one originated in Mario Kart 7. So let's talk about the track. The gameplay is definitely completely different from its Mario Kart 7 counterpart, as it features Mario Kart World's mechanics now in favor of Mario Kart 7, with the rail grinding all over the place on the different ropes, rails, and the wall riding that you can also do as well. Seeing this course in Mario Kart World brought me so much joy, and with the new rail grinding mechanics, it definitely makes the track a lot more fun to play, as I can definitely change my route and change how I play the track in comparison to the Mario Kart 7 counterpart. So, if you haven't already noticed, the design is completely different in terms of between the two games. Mario Kart 7's design is loosely based on the Subcon from Super Mario Bros. 2. Mario Kart World's take on Shy Guy Bazaar is now in a more Arabic style with Arabic sort of fashion and architecture. The music itself also I feel like really lends to the design itself and definitely boosts it in that points for me at least. And let's talk about the music. This music has always been one of my favorites from Mario Kart 7, and hearing it in Mario Kart World is such a treat. The new instrumentation that they use for the Mario Kart World rendition is really neat, and once again I feel like it definitely matches the overall design that they were going with this course, so I feel like the music and the design of the course go hand in hand together. And that for this reasons, I've decided to put Shy Guy Bazaar into the A tier. That's my ranking, so let's move on to the next track. The next track we have is Wario Stadium. This one originated in Mario Kart 64. So for the first thing I want to talk about is the layout. If you've seen the layout of the original version compared to Mario Kart World's version, you can clearly see that the two versions are vastly different in terms of their layout. Mario Kart 64's version has a lot more twists and turns, and is a lot more complex, and is the second longest track in that game. This is not reflected in Mario Kart World's version, as the track is a whole lot shorter. Lots of twists and turns were definitely cut from this track. The one thing that remained in both is the big iconic jump near the end of the track, which I definitely think is a bonus for that. I think that shrinking this track down to its size that it is in Mario Kart World was definitely a good call considering the original size, and while yes, Mario Kart games and newer titles are a lot smoother running, I think this was the best change that they could have done for this track. Now let's talk about the gameplay of the track. I really do love the gameplay of this track because it's once again one of the very more technical tracks in the game in terms of its rail grinding mechanics and wall grinding mechanics. So I feel like there's a lot to learn with this track, and definitely it's a fun track to try and master. Now let's talk about the design of the course. The design of this course is really intricate, and I really do love it in comparison to its Mario Kart 64 counterpart. Yes, the Mario Kart 64 version was a lot more simplistic, and yes, it was on the Nintendo 64, so I can understand the very simplistic design choices that they made with that, but I definitely feel like putting it in this Mario Kart World definitely gave them a lot of potential to do a lot more with the track, and I definitely think they aced it on that part. The design is very messy and gruff, which I feel like totally matches Wario's personality. So I feel like this track really does capture Wario as a person. Like I said, it's very gruff and messy and chaotic all over the place. So I think they definitely did a good job on that front. And lastly, the music. The music is so much fun to listen to. I really especially love listening to the final lap music once I hit that final lap. I really feel like the stakes increase once I reach the final lap, with the stadium cheering in the background, which definitely adds a nice element to this track. So for all these reasons, I've decided to put Wario Stadium in the A tier. Let's move on to the next track. To round off the Flower Cup, we have Airship Fortress. This one also originated from Mario Kart DS. So, compared to Desert Hills, I feel like in my opinion, Airship Fortress certainly strives in the three categories that I've been talking about. First, the gameplay. The gameplay is a lot more fun with this track in my opinion, because it definitely feels like a lot more of the more technical tracks in Mario Kart World, so it definitely makes it a lot more fun. There's a whole lot of rail grinding which makes this track a lot of fun. So, for those reasons alone, I think that Airship Fortress definitely thrives in the gameplay category, and definitely makes it a fun track to try and master, especially in time trials. The design. While the original design was a lot more simplistic and didn't have too much going on, Mario Kart World definitely gives the original track a huge glow up, and I think that's great. This really does feel like the true Airship Fortress experience in my opinion. I do love the new design that they did with the airship. It really does feel like a true airship now run by Bowser. The fortress itself, well, it's pretty neat too, because it really does feel like it's been lived in and cracked and run down compared to the Mario Kart DS version. So this track really does feel like it's being lived in by Bowser and his minions. So for that reason alone, I think it definitely receives points in the design category. Now for the music. The music is probably really neat. I really do love the music. Let's start with the build up right before entering to Airship Fortress. The intro right before entering to Airship Fortress really does give me that feeling of entering a place that I really shouldn't be in, or sort of a danger zone that I'm about to enter. Now for the music itself that plays on Airship Fortress, I feel like it's kind of similar to how I feel about Shy Guy Bazaar, where the music definitely matches the design of the course. So I feel like they definitely mastered that part when making this music for this new track. So for this reasons alone, I've once again put Airship Fortress into the A tier. Let's move on to the next track. Our next cup starts off the Star Cup. This is DK Pass. This one was originated from Mario Kart DS once again. So for starters, let's talk about the gameplay. So the gameplay is definitely really good in this one. It definitely makes use of Mario Kart World's new mechanics, such as the wall riding and the rail grinding, and being able to jump off and trick off different objects. So I definitely think that's a huge plus side for this course. So it definitely gets points on that one from me at least. The next is the design of the course. So I think the design of this course is really neat, because originally it was merely just simply climb up the mountain, climb back down. There was of course the snowballs that you had to avoid. The snowmen too were present on this track, which sadly they were removed from this version of the track, which I think was definitely a nice touch on the original, definitely makes it a little bit trickier, but of course, you know, you gotta account for Mario Kart World now and its new mechanics and physics. So why do I like this one now? Well, because it feels more of like an actual ski hill now, and not just the generic climb up the mountain, climb back down like I said earlier. The snowballs are still present, so you can still try to avoid those along the way as you climb up to the hill. And then running back down, it kind of actually feels like a ski hill now, which is pretty neat, so I like what they did. And especially the atmosphere around it, it really gives this cozy feeling of a ski hill. As for the music, I do like it. It feels nice. It feels very Christmassy or wintry in a way, which definitely captures the aesthetic of the course, and I think it actually works out very well. So I think the music definitely works well with this track. And for that reason, I've decided to put it once again in the A tier along with the previous courses I've had in the A tier. So let's move on to the next track. Next up is Starview Peak. So this one I'm not too sure about if I like as much compared to the last few that I've mentioned. The last few have also been like the A tier or B tier at very best. However, Starview Peak I feel doesn't live up to the name of the rest of the courses, because it really doesn't have much going for it, honestly. There's not a lot of obstacles and really anything going on. It merely just feels like an unfinished course that's missing a lot of stuff to it. Also, another thing is, it does kind of feel like a blend between Rosalina's Ice World from Mario Kart 7 and Ice Ice Outpost from Mario Kart 8, with the colored green and yellow pathways found in that track. So really, this kind of just feels like a glorified version of both of those tracks combined into one. Like I said, there is not much going on here other than like, you know, the water section, as well as like the dash boost rings in the sky, but really those don't do much. So really, there isn't much going on for Starview Peak. It's quite an empty track, so it really feels very, like I said, unfinished in that way. Now, the design of the course, however, is pretty neat. It's got the beautiful auroras surrounding the track, which I think really is a nice touch. And of course, you know, there's the other things like the glowing ice and the observatory itself. Driving through it as well looks pretty neat. So overall, the course aesthetic is really nice. The design of it is pretty cool. So I think that's definitely where this track thrives the most in terms of the three categories that I've been rating. So I think the design definitely gets the points on that one. Now for the music. Starview Peak is one that I've listened to several times and do enjoy it while playing the track. Of course, the track itself is fairly boring, there's not much going on, like I said, but the music for me definitely adds to the feeling of this magical track that, you know, could have been something amazing, but of course there's not much going on. So overall, Starview Peak I don't think really thrives well in the gameplay category. Well, yes, it does good in the design and music category. For me, like I said, gameplay is the biggest thing, and there isn't really much going on other than like the water section and the two pathway sections that are split into two colors. So for that reason alone, I put Starview Peak into the C tier. Next track is Sky High Sundae. This one originated in Mario Kart Tour. So, originally in Mario Kart Tour and the Booster Course Pass, Sky High Sundae really did not have a very clean finished look to it. It had that Mario Kart Tour plasticky style that you'd see in, well, the Mario Kart Tour game obviously. Mario Kart World would then later come along to definitely upgrade and visually make this track look a lot more pleasing to look at compared to the original counterpart. So that's definitely why I think this one looks a lot better, and definitely why I think it deserves a high placement. The gameplay for Sky High Sundae and Mario Kart World is definitely a lot better to its Tour or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe counterpart, because there's a lot more potential for rail grinding and wall riding, so I definitely feel like this one definitely thrives in the gameplay category in comparison to its original counterpart. The design. So like I said, the original design was a lot more plasticky like Mario Kart Tour's art style. In Mario Kart World, it definitely got a huge glow up in the department of design, with the different textures, new colors, and a lot of different new things scattered around to make it look a lot more pleasing than it did in Mario Kart Tour or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I definitely feel like the design really thrives in this part of the track itself. And lastly, the music. The music is very unchanged in comparison to its Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version. While it may sound exactly identical, there are some slight differences using instrumentation from Mario Kart Tour's version and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so it kind of mashes the two together. But overall, the music is pretty much identical to how it sounded in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The lead up to the track, just before entering to Sky High Sundae, is definitely a nice theme too. I definitely like listening to it a lot for sure. Trust me, I've listened to it many times. It's a simple beat, but I feel like it definitely leads up to that amazing Sky High Sundae that we see in Mario Kart World. So for all those reasons, I've put it into the A tier. Let's move on to the next track. To finish off the Star Cup, we have Wario Shipyard, also known as Wario's Galleon in other regions. This one originated from Mario Kart 7. So overall, I definitely think this is a nice design for Wario Shipyard. It definitely looks pretty neat, and I think it looks really good. I like it. However, the gameplay is, once again, like I said, the biggest thing for me. And I think the gameplay definitely falls off here, at least with the water physics. Mario Kart World's water physics are definitely something that I know several people could agree with me that are definitely harder to work with and definitely hard to drive around. And considering that a lot of this track is now submerged underwater, or you have to drive along the water, I feel like it makes it a lot more difficult to actually enjoy the track. Another thing is, I feel like the identity of the track was now lost with Mario Kart World's new water driving mechanics where you drive on top of the water. While it's a nice touch that Mario Kart World has driving on water now, like I said, I feel like the identity of the original Wario Shipyard was now lost, and I feel like it's merely just a bunch of pathways with a whole bunch of water. Yes, the layout is exactly identical to the Mario Kart 7 version, however, not everything is kept intact, considering now we have to drive on water versus in Mario Kart 7 where we drive underwater, so I definitely think that's a loss of points on that one. The design is pretty neat though. I do like the several ships and wrecked ships scattered around the area. The palm trees too also definitely add to this aesthetic, and I definitely love the design, so I definitely think that adds to it too. The music. So for the music, it's not my personal favorite. I never was a huge fan of Wario Shipyard in Mario Kart 7, and it wasn't too exciting in Mario Kart World either, especially with the new water driving mechanics. But yeah, overall, the music didn't stand out too much to me, so it wasn't anything super unique, but it was still pretty neat. And I think it's a pretty good song overall, and I think they did a good job with the remix, but again, I wouldn't say it's my personal favorite song. Alright, so for this all reasons, I have put it into the C tier along with Starview Peak. So let's move on to the next track. To start off the Shell Cup, we have Koopa Beach 2. This one originated in Super Mario Kart. In my previous ranking, I had put Koopa Beach 2 pretty high up on my list. However, just like DK Spaceport, I only really considered the aesthetic of the track and the design, and didn't really take into consideration any other factors. And I might have been a little bit biased too because it's Koopa Beach. Anyways, for this track, it's really simple. It's a Super Nintendo course. There really isn't much going on for it, so really, it's hard to really rank it anything. There isn't much you can really do with those courses considering how flat they are, and Nintendo has really shown us that they haven't really considered to do much with them anyway in the first place. Not really much elevation or anything really. So overall, there's not much going on in terms of gameplay. The music is definitely a huge step up from the gameplay itself, but again, this is really just a minor thing. I think the music definitely adds to this, and I definitely really like it. And like I said, the design is definitely fantastic, and it looks completely amazing compared to its original counterpart, or especially as seen in Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Tour. So I think this track definitely gets a much lower rating compared to the rest of the courses. So this will be one of the 3 courses that'll be in the D tier. The next track is Faraway Oasis. This track definitely is really fun in my opinion, and I do love the design and what they did and the theming for this course. So let's talk about the 3 categories. First, the gameplay. This track plays pretty well. There's a few places to do rail grinding and some cool shortcuts you can pull off. So it's a pretty average decent course. In terms of gameplay, there's not too much crazy going on, not too crazy. There's not so many obstacles to really avoid, but there's still a lot of fun to do with the rail grinding around the course and the shortcuts. So overall, it's not too bad of a course. The design of the course, like I said, I like this course. It looks really nice. It's very pleasing to look at. I love the theming that they did. It really feels amazing. It really does feel like that savannah out in the Faraway Oasis. Haha, funny joke there. Anyways, moving on to the music. So the music for this track, I really love the theme for this track. It's pretty good. I definitely love it. It really builds up with the intro theme all the way into the actual theme of Faraway Oasis. So I think the music definitely does a good job at carrying this track, in my opinion. So overall, Faraway Oasis isn't too bad of a track. I wouldn't say it's perfect, and I wouldn't say it's my top favorite, but I think it still does a good job at getting the point across of what it wants to be. So for that reason, I've put it into the B tier. To round off the Shell Cup, we have Peach Stadium. We're skipping over Crown City since I did cover it already and we covered every route. We'll be doing the same with Peach Stadium and skipping it when we reach the Special Cup. So let's start with the 3 categories. First, the gameplay. So Peach Stadium honestly really doesn't have much going for it. It plays here like your generic stadium course in any other Mario Kart game. There's a few jumps here and there, twist and turn roads around and about, so it's not that exciting. At least for the Peach Stadium and the Special Cup, that is. The other 2 versions of Peach Stadium, well, they're merely just paperclip shaped, honestly. That's literally all they are. There's nothing special going for those, aside from avoiding the traffic on the bottom, which again is like fairly simple, so there really isn't much else going for it, honestly. It's just a really simple paperclip, a few quick 90 degree turns on every turn, really, so it's nothing fantastic. And the Peach Stadium and the Special Cup, like I said, it's nothing fancy. Now for the design, I think it's not too bad. I do like it. It's not like super amazing. Again, it's your generic stadium course, so I don't really know what you're expecting anything crazy big. But it is neat that the course does kind of wrap around Peach's Castle, and we have definitely seen Peach's Castle in several Mario Circuit tracks, but it's nice to finally see Peach's Castle in a Peach-themed course. So that's pretty cool. Now for the music. I feel like the music, at least for the intro music just before reaching Peach Stadium, is a nice build up to the course. The music definitely builds up and hypes you up for the course and gets you ready for another epic race. Again, there is nothing crazy going on with Peach Stadium, like I said, but I think the music definitely helps hype it up and make it a little bit more exciting. The music itself feels very grand. It definitely feels like your opening stadium course. While it's not necessarily the first track in the Mario Kart world, I definitely feel like the music definitely gives that opener vibes of, alright, start your engines everybody, it's time to race. So I definitely feel like the music carries this track for the most part, honestly. And so for this reasons, I decided to put Peach Stadium into the C tier. Next up, Peach Beach. This one originated in Mario Kart Double Dash. In Mario Kart World, Peach Beach has a brand new route and brand new take on the course itself. The first lap is exactly identical to its original counterpart in Mario Kart Double Dash. However, the second and third lap are completely different and shake things up. So, as you can see, the first lap is basically identical. However, on the second and third lap, instead of going the usual route, there are 2 new routes added for the second and third route. The second route takes us upwards towards the top of this castle structure, and then we can go through these small like town sections into its part, and then the third lap is, well, it's a bit anticlimactic in my opinion, and that's kind of where I feel like this course struggles, is there's not a lot going on. The third lap has you drop down from the top with a glider, and then gliding back down into the water, which is pretty neat. So like I said, it's a new take on Peach Beach, but really there isn't much going on with this course. It's fairly simple. So it's kind of hard to really say that, oh, there's a lot going on. This track is actually pretty good. But like, again, there isn't much happening, so I don't really feel like it's pretty exciting of a track. There isn't much going on. As for the design, I think it's neat. I think it's a neat take on what they did, and I do like it. It really does feel like that true Princess Peach resort now, which is pretty cool. I do like what they did. So I think it's a good design. The music isn't too bad either, and the lead up to Peach Beach isn't too bad either. It's not a bad song, and I wouldn't mind listening to it once in a while, but it's definitely not my personal favorite. So overall, Peach Beach isn't necessarily my favorite course, and I don't really think it ranks high on my list, so I've put it into the C tier. Next track is Salty Salty Speedway. So overall, this track isn't too bad. I think it looks pretty cool in design, and it's pretty neat. It's got some cool shortcuts, so it's definitely one of the more technical sided tracks in my opinion. So let's go into the gameplay. So, well, part of this track is underwater, and I don't want to go too harshly on judging the water physics, although it kind of sucks to drive in water in this game. I think it's pretty good of a track. I think it plays well. Like I said, it's a fairly technical track, so there's a lot to learn with this course, which is why I think it's pretty good in the gameplay category. So I think that's definitely where it earns its points. The design. So I think this track is well designed. I think it looks pretty cool. There is a lot around to see and look at and explore in this course. It's very pretty, very pleasing to look at. It's pretty cool that they have a whole city around this entire water section of the track of the world. So it's pretty cool. And it kind of does feel like your sort of city course of Mario Kart Tour, where it's like, you know, it's kind of got that Venice feeling to it, you know, where it's beside the water and it's like the town next to the water. So it's kind of like Venice. Pretty cool. So overall, it's pretty cool design. I like it. You know, the little bushes and trees scattered around also make this place a little bit more lively and definitely make it feel like a true town along the water. As for the course music itself, I don't mind it. It's not bad. I don't think I listen to it all the time, but I think it's pretty good. The lead up isn't too bad either. I think it's nice and gets you ready for the course that's about to start in Salty Salty Speedway. So it's pretty good. And the song itself isn't bad either, so I think it's pretty good. Overall, Salty Salty Speedway isn't a bad course. I wouldn't say it's my personal favorite, but I think it gets the job done, much like Faraway Oasis. So for that reason, it's in the B tier. Next up is Dino Dino Jungle. This one also originated from Mario Kart Double Dash. This new course has a brand new take on how it looks compared to its original counterpart in Mario Kart Double Dash, as well as Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart Tour. Dino Dino Jungle and Mario Kart World definitely feels a lot more of that sort of Jurassic Park feeling to it. So it definitely feels a lot more, it's got like that kind of feeling to it rather than, you know, your typical jungle that you'd expect. While the course is set in the jungle, there is a whole lot of new things and different props and cool little assets and unique designs scattered around the course to make it feel more of that Jurassic Park feel. So I think that's pretty cool. So the gameplay. It pretty much plays the same as its original counterpart in Mario Kart Double Dash, so there's nothing too fancy going on there. You know, there's the new dinosaur for that cool little shortcut that you can do, or that cool little extra route on the bridge section, so you have to ride along the dinosaur now instead of just riding along the wooden bridge. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it plays well. It's not too bad. It overall does what it originally did, so I think it's pretty good. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The design. So like I said, I already talked about the design pretty much. I kind of praised it. I think it looks pretty cool. It's a neat design. New take on Dino Dino Jungle, which I really love. I think it looks pretty cool. So it's nice they went the whole sort of Jurassic Park look to it. It's pretty cool. Dinosaurs running around, everything's crazy, you know, boom, bang, everything's going insane. So it's pretty cool. I like it. And it, you know, it definitely does get, you know, it's got in the jungle setting, so it's got that, you know, jungle setting to it. So it's pretty good. As for the music, it's not bad. I like it. I think it's pretty good. The lead up isn't too bad. I don't mind listening to it. I listen to it once in a while. And the course itself is pretty cool. It does feel like it sort of matches the course theme too. So I feel like the music kind of goes hand in hand with the track itself. So I feel like the music definitely matches the vibe of the course and the feel to it and the whole design. So I think it does the job. Overall, it's not a bad course. Once again, this one is also in the B tier. To finish off the Banana Cup, we have Great Question Block Ruins. So overall, it's not a bad course. I kind of like it, it's pretty cool. So let's talk about the categories. So first, the gameplay. So I think this track is pretty good and does well in the gameplay category, mostly for how technical this track really feels. It really does feel like one of the more technical tracks in the game, especially considering the iconic shortcut at the end of the course, where you jump off, ride the question block, and jump back onto the course. So it's definitely a more technical track, and it's fun to learn and master, especially the iconic shortcut at the end. So it's really fun, especially when you can pull that off. So next, the design. I like the design of this track. It feels sort of like where you'd find the mythical gods living. It feels like a very magical place that's high in the sky where people like those mythical gods, kind of like something in Greek you'd find in the Greek mythology. So it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty neat like that. And it's got, you know, the foliage everywhere, grass, flowers, trees. It's pretty cool. It does feel like a special, like a sort of place for these Greek gods these gods to be living in or something. So it's pretty cool. I like it. It does a good job at that. So overall, it's pretty pleasing to look at. As for the music, it really does, like again, just like Dino Jungle and many other courses I've mentioned, I feel like the music goes hand in hand with the course design. I feel like it fits it pretty well, so it's not too bad of a track. Overall, it's pretty good. Once again, I feel like it gets the job done, so it's pretty good. And the lead up is pretty nice too. It does feel a little bit simple, but the course music itself definitely carries, and I think it does a good job. So overall, I think Question Block Ruins isn't too bad of a track. So for that reason, I have decided to put it in the B tier. We now move on to the Leaf Cup. Starting us off is Cheep Cheep Falls. So this course, I wasn't too sure about it, and you know, to this day, it's not too bad of a course. I think it's pretty cool. However, the gameplay is, well, mid-tier at best in my opinion, so that's just my opinion. It's pretty cool, pretty neat. And I don't want to be too harsh with the water physics, but yes, again, the water physics in this game are kind of janky sometimes, and a lot of this track is set in the water physics, so it's kind of annoying. Attempting the shortcut, as you can see that one of these CPUs are taking currently, I feel like sometimes it's hard to take it, and you gotta be precise with your turn, so it's definitely a harder shortcut to try and master. So it definitely feels like it's a little bit hard, and which is why I don't usually attempt to go for it. But overall, it doesn't play too poorly, it's just the water physics definitely, I feel like it's harder to navigate, and again, I don't want to be too harsh with the water physics, but that's how I feel with this course. The design, however, I feel like is certainly amazing, so I feel like this is definitely where the most points go, is the design. It really does capture that sort of aesthetic that they were going for with this course, and it really does feel like that sort of Japanese look that they were going for. And I think it's amazing, so what they did. With the different colors, the very orangey colors that, mind you, and the different structures all around really make it feel like that sort of Japanese course, so I feel like it's pretty neat. I love when Nintendo does sort of themed courses that are themed around different parts of the world. And that does not include Mario Kart Tour City courses, but actual courses in the game that are solely based on other places in the real world. So I think it's pretty neat. The music isn't too bad. I feel like, once again, this one definitely does go hand in hand with the track itself, or the track design at least. So I feel like that's also a plus side for that. So yes, I feel like the music, once again, goes hand in hand with the track design itself. It's pretty good, and I love the instrumentation that they use. It does really feel like you're sort of transported into that sort of Japanese world, so I really love it. It's pretty neat. So overall, I don't mind it too much, but I think the gameplay for me the most, it really does take it down, and there isn't much going on really with the course, so overall, I think I'd have this one in the C tier. Next up, we have Dandelion Depths. Like Crown City, this one has been a personal favorite of mine from the very beginning. However, I feel like unlike Crown City, it's kind of slowly devolved to a lower tier compared to Crown City. It's not a bad course per se, I do like it, but I think it doesn't do as good of a job in Crown City does, at least in my opinion. So let's talk about the gameplay. Yes, there's water sections, but those are definitely not the biggest thing here. But overall, it's not too bad. But I feel like the biggest thing is there's not really much going on with the course. It's very simple, so it's kind of really, hard to really judge what's going on when it's just you're driving through water, driving up and down some slopes here and there, so it's nothing fancy. I mean, there's not really many technical elements either to the course, but overall, it's not too bad, so I think it's pretty good. The design. I really love this design, and it definitely feels like something straight out of Super Mario Odyssey's Wooded Kingdom, with the whole metallic design and the colors too. So it really does feel like they took some inspiration from that world and made it into a track. So it's pretty neat that they did that. So I like it. I think it looks overall pretty good. And I do like the descent into the depths itself. It's pretty cool. So starting up at the top and then going down into the depths is pretty cool. So I like that. And the design of the cave itself is pretty neat too. And they have a few, dandelions flying around, obviously, because it's Dandelion Depths. You gotta have the dandelion, to really sell the point. But anyways, the music. The music is one of the ones that I've been listening to several times over and over, and I really love it. It really does feel like a sort of exploration feel to it, so it's pretty cool. I like it. It really does a good job at fitting with this course, so I like it. It's a good song. So overall, Dandelion Depths, while it was originally one of my favorite courses and top spots from Mario Kart World's launch, it has definitely dropped down, mostly because, the gameplay, there's not much going on here. So for these reasons, it's now in the B tier. Next up is Boo Cinema, and this one is very cinema. Anyways, so for this track, it's not like super exciting. There isn't a lot happening. I feel like it suffers from the same fate of Starview Peak, where it does feel a bit unfinished, but there's not much going on, and it just feels like a bit of that more rushed track, so it's not really too much happening. So gameplay wise, it's not like super insane. There's just a few twists and turns here and there, so it's nothing too crazy overall. The cool thing is that you do get to enter the actual the movie screen itself and enter into the movie, so it's pretty neat what they did with that, so that's pretty cool. But again, that section really does feel kind of short, and I feel like majority of the track is taken up by the actual theater itself and not actually driving through the movie or the cinema itself, so it's nothing too fancy, honestly. There's not a lot of obstacles either, nothing crazy going on, so it's just, a few small shortcuts here and there, and then this and that, so it's nothing fancy. The design, however, much like Starview Peak, I think is pretty good. It's a pretty cool track and design. I like it. I like the idea of it. I like Mario Kart's Ghost theme courses because they always have some cool, unique designs or ideas to them, with the older titles having the spookier themes like in Super Mario Kart's Ghost Valley tracks or Mario Kart Super Circuit's Broken Pier and Boo Lake, or the more modern tracks like Twisted Mansion from Mario Kart 8, or in this case, Mario Kart World's Boo Cinema, so it's a cool design and a cool idea. I do like having the little reel tape so you get to drive along and seeing them around inside the actual movie itself, so that's pretty neat. The music itself. So the music leading up to Boo Cinema isn't super exciting. It doesn't necessarily hype me up in particular, in my opinion, but the track music itself is pretty cool. When you start outside of in the theater, the music just, plays normally as you'd expect. However, once you enter into the actual movie theater, a different rendition of the song plays, so it's pretty cool that they did that. So I do like that. But overall, I feel like Boo Cinema does lacks in a lot of things, and I feel like there could have been more done with this course. So for that reason, it's down in the C tier. To finish off the Leaf Cup, we have Bones Burnout. This course is personally one of my personal favorites in Mario Kart World, and here's why: the theming of the course. Like I mentioned with Cheep Falls, I love when Nintendo does sort of real-world-esque themed courses and not the ones of the Mario Kart Tour City tracks. So I definitely like with this one. So let's start with the gameplay. The gameplay isn't overall too exciting, but I think it's pretty good. It's got a few technical elements to it, but nothing too crazy. So it's nothing too insane that you need to master and try and learn. It's a fairly simple course. Twists and turns here and there, a glider section, and a few rails you can grind on, so it's not bad. Now the biggest thing for me is the theming of this course, the design. This is, I think, where the most points are carried in this one. I think this is definitely where it's carried. The design of this course. So if you don't know, this course is basically based off Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is a Mexican holiday. As you can clearly see, there are several different things scattered around that are featured in this Mexican holiday, which is pretty cool, and I really do love what they did with it. The design, the patterns, the colors, it really does feel like that Dia de los Muertos experience. So it really does feel like you're getting involved and immersed into that culture of the Mexican holiday. So I really do love that. So there's a lot going on. I could really talk about the design on and on. It's really good. I think they did a fantastic job. Now the music. The music isn't too bad. The lead up isn't my personal favorite. It doesn't feel super grand, but the music of the track itself I think is definitely where it gets more points as well. So I think the music is really good. I love listening to it. It's a good song, and I feel like it definitely captures that sort of that song of Dia de los Muertos, something you definitely hear during the Mexican holiday. So it's a fantastic song, and I really love it. I think it does a fantastic job. Once again, I could talk about the design on, and I definitely want to talk about it a little bit more, so it's a good design. I love it. All the little details, every little attention to detail, everything feels fantastic. While I'm not someone who typically would celebrate Dia de los Muertos, I think it's a nice touch that they have all these sort of designs and cute little things scattered around the track to make it really feel like the Dia de los Muertos experience. So for all these reasons, Bones Burnout is in the A tier. We are now on the Lightning Cup. This starts with Moo Moo Meadows. This one originated in Mario Kart Wii. So, Moo Moo Meadows, it's basically the same course it's always been. It's a little annoying that they put this track in for like the third time, so, it'd be nice, Nintendo, if you could, I don't know, put some other courses that have yet to see the light of day, or have barely seen the light of day in like, years. Like, maybe Moo Moo Farm would have been nice. Anyways, Moo Moo Meadows basically plays exactly the same as it did in Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 8. There's nothing fancy. Glider is included from Mario Kart 8's version, and well, it's pretty much the standard thing for the rest of the course. Plays exactly the same as it did in both games. So it's nothing new. It's really just the same course, just a bit more fancy and designed. So let's talk about the design now. So the design is pretty neat. It's pretty neat that it's more on like a farm setting now, which, there's a course called Moo Moo Farm, Nintendo. Anyways, so it's pretty nice what they did with the design. I like what they did. It's cool. It's got a cool little farm aesthetic to it, so pretty cute. I like that. And the music, lastly. It's nothing fancy. It really just feels like a more modernized, fancy version of Mario Kart 8's version, with the violin and everything. So there's nothing going on special for that. So for all these reasons, it's nothing special. It's really just the same course, just, modernized into an even fancier style, making it look 10 times better than it did in Mario Kart 8. So this is the second track in the D tier. Next up is Choco Mountain. This one originated in Mario Kart 64. So overall, it's not a bad track. It plays alright. I think it's pretty decent. It's the same layout, just a little bit more fancy stuff everywhere here and there. So gameplay wise, it's nothing too fancy. It's pretty good. It plays the same as it originally did in Mario Kart 64 and its other versions as well. There's no glider this time included, so that's a different change that they made, but it's not too bad. So overall, it's not bad. It's a fairly simple course. Design-wise, I don't mind it. It's pretty cool. I do like what they did with it, and I think it looks cool. It's sort of that metallic feeling now in comparison to an actual mountain. But for that reason, I wasn't too personally a huge fan of the new design for Choco Mountain, as I did like the previous designs of Choco Mountain in previous iterations of it and Mario Kart 64's version. While I do like the new chocolate mud puddles all over scattered over the place, I think it's pretty cool, and the fountain spewing chocolate all over the place, I think that's cool. But really, I don't really feel like this track feels like the Choco Mountain that it originally was. It more just feels like a chocolate factory instead, so it feels more like chocolate factory instead of Choco Mountain. Maybe this is where Willy Wonka has another secret location. Maybe I'll go here and get a golden chocolate bar and win infinite lifetime of chocolate. Anyways, the music itself isn't too bad. It's a now more rock take on the original song, so it's pretty neat, sort of to match like the sort of metallic style of the new Choco Mountain appearance. So it's pretty cool. I don't mind it, but personally I wouldn't listen to it. It's not my personal favorite. So overall, Choco Mountain rates for me in the C tier. Next up is Toad's Factory. This one originated in Mario Kart Wii. So let's go over the three categories. First is the gameplay. So I feel like Toad's Factory in Mario Kart World pretty much plays the exact same as it did in Mario Kart Wii. There's nothing too fancy, nothing crazy new added to this track, other than the fact that, we gotta account for the rail grinding and wall grinding mechanics in Mario Kart World. So I feel like now, with all these new mechanics featured in Mario Kart World's version of Toad's Factory, it definitely feels a lot more on the technical side of the track, of things. So it's a fun track to try and learn and master, and definitely makes it really fun to play over and over again and try to master the cool shortcuts and the different techniques. So overall, it plays pretty well. Next, the design. I love the new design of this Toad's Factory. It's really cool what they did. I love the new structures, the different things that they have around, the textures, the things scattered around. It really does feel like that true modernized Toad's Factory experience that, you'd expect for a modern Mario Kart game. So it's pretty good. I definitely feel like they did a good job. And I feel like the colors are really good and definitely really pop out in lots of places. So I think it's pretty good. I love the background elements too. There's so many different structures and equipment scattered around in the background of Toad's Factory too, so it's pretty fun, especially to explore them in free roam. So I love that. Pretty good, not too bad. Next is the music. And I promise I did not listen to 10 hours of the intro theme right before entering Toad's Factory. I would never do that because that's crazy. Who would do that? Anyways, the theme for Toad's Factory in this new rendition is pretty good. It's not too bad. I like it. I think it's pretty good what they did. I like the song. It's not bad. I would listen to it once in a while over and over again, so it's pretty good. And I definitely would not listen to the intro theme right before entering Toad's Factory for 10 hours. I promise. So overall, Toad's Factory isn't a bad track. It's pretty good, pretty simple. Got the basic necessities that, a retro track would need. It's pretty good, pretty neat. I like it. So overall, I'd put it into B tier. Lastly, in the Lightning Cup, we have Bowser's Castle. So it's pretty neat that Bowser's Castle isn't the second last course in this game, but it's not the first time this has happened, as it was not the second last course in Mario Kart 64 or Super Mario Kart. Otherwise, it's been the second last course for pretty much every other game. Anyway, moving on. So we'll start with the gameplay. So the gameplay for Bowser's Castle, I think it's pretty good. I love it. It definitely feels like a very technical track to try and learn and master. There's a lot of cool shortcuts, a lot of cool tricks and everything you can do. So I think it plays pretty well. It's a pretty good track. I love it. It's very fun to try and master. While I haven't mastered every single shortcut on this track, it's fun to try and learn them and practice over and over again to completely master it so that I can get good ranks and score good places when I play online races. Next, the design. I love the design of this place. To me, whenever I look at it, it kind of reminds me of Super Mario Bros. Wonder's final battle with Bowser, especially with the giant cloud at the top of the stage, so I think that's definitely something pretty cool. It definitely gives me the Super Mario Bros. Wonder vibes, like almost like they were inspired by that final boss battle from that game to make this course, so it's pretty cool. I love it. It's pretty neat. I love it. It's a good track. It's a good design. And the cool little elements in the background and everything all around is pretty neat too. I love to see everything. And doing the gliding after the gliding section, on the higher portion with the clouds and everything, it's nice to see the whole world from up above, so it's pretty cool to see everything when you're doing like that higher up section. Pretty neat, I like it. Lastly, the music. I love the music. It's not too bad. I don't think I'd listen to it all the time personally, but it's not a bad song. It definitely feels like that true Bowser Castle song experience, so I think the Bowser Castle theme in this game definitely gets the job done. Overall, Bowser's Castle in this game is pretty good, and I really love it. So for that reason, it's in the A tier. We're now at the end. We've reached the Special Cup. And to start things off, we have Acorn Heights. So this track for me has never really stuck with me ever since the game launched, and to this day, it hasn't really stuck with me since. It has no really any redeeming qualities that I feel like, in my opinion, makes it a really good track. Yeah, there's the cool different paths you can take along just after the glider section, but overall, there's not much happening. It really feels like a chaotic mess, so there's nothing too fancy going on with this track in terms of gameplay. I mean, there's, like one shortcut you can take near the end of the track, but that's nothing. Near the end of the track, before reaching the finish line, there are the acorns that you can avoid, but considering the amount of multiple different routes there are and the rail grinding you can do in this section, it's fairly easy to pretty much avoid the acorns, and like getting hit by them is next to near impossible to getting hit, so I mean, you really gotta try to get hit by those, at least from my experience. But yeah, so gameplay wise, it's nothing fancy. Design wise, however, it's not too bad. I think it looks pretty cool. They got the cute little acorn houses hanging from the tree, so that's pretty neat. I like that, very cute. But overall, it's, just a tree in the middle of the woods. It's nothing too fancy. It's not a bad track per se in terms of design. I like it. I think it looks pretty good. But I mean, it's just, a tree in the woods with some other little things going on around it. Nothing fancy. And lastly, the music. The music has never really stuck with me ever since its launch. But, it's just kind of there. It doesn't feel super fancy. Honestly, Acorn Heights for me, like the music, the track itself, really doesn't feel like the true Special Cup experience. It just kind of, I feel like there's a lot that could have been done with the track. There's a lot of stuff going on outside of the track that I feel like could have been used. And I feel like that's a lot of cases from some of Mario Kart World's tracks, is they suffer from the fact that there's a lot going on outside the course, but there's a lot that was never utilized. So I feel like there's a lot going on. This is how I feel with Acorn Heights specifically. So overall, Acorn Heights never stuck with me, and for that reason, it's in the C tier. Next up is Mario Circuit, and you're probably wondering, which one? Because there's a lot. Well, this is Mario Circuit 1, Mario Circuit 2, and Mario Circuit 3 combined, all from Super Mario Kart. That's crazy. So, gameplay-wise, it's nothing fancy. It plays exactly the same as it did in its original retro track versions and its original version in Super Mario Kart. It's standard turn left, right, this, that, 2 straight lines. Design-wise, it's not too bad. I mean, it basically feels like, the original tracks. I mean, there's cool, signs everywhere and a little pit stop area, which is in the middle, which is pretty cool, pretty neat. I like that. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's really just, whatever. Really, honestly, there isn't much going around on this track. It just feels very simple. The only other thing is this big jump here, but that's about it. So each lap is completely different, which is, pretty neat, but again, it's nothing fancy. As for the music, it's a new rendition of the Mario Circuit theme from Super Mario Kart. Instead of the usual sort of style that we've been hearing for the last several games in the Mario Kart series. This one's a new take, which is nice, but again, it's probably the only really redeeming quality of this entire track. It's very basic, very simple. It's just Mario Circuit 1, 2, and 3 combined to a track, and, you know, we couldn't, think of something more unique, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, so for all these reasons, this is the last course in the D tier. The final track of Mario Kart World. It's Rainbow Road. So, this one I have a lot to say about, and I'm going to talk about it for a little bit. So let's do that. So to start off, how I like to play Rainbow Road typically is starting at Peach Stadium, working my way over to Rainbow Road. As you can clearly see here, it's a very fancy and incredible build-up. It gets player ready and hyped for the biggest Rainbow Road experience of their life. And trust me, this is insane. I was not ready for what I was about to see when I was entering this track for the first time. It was incredibly insane. So the first part is pretty simple, you know, straight line, straight up to Rainbow Road. And then finally, we lead up to Rainbow Road itself. So this Rainbow Road contains a total of 4 sections. And oh my goodness, this track is the most insane thing ever. I am literally blown away. I have no words to say for this. It's insane. So the first part of the track is fairly simple. It's your basic standard Rainbow Road with a few twists and turns here and there. It's not too bad. It plays fairly well. Lap 2 is completely different, as now we're driving through the clouds and into a sort of watery section for the first half of it. The second section of lap 2 splits into a two-way pathway, so it splits into 2 different paths. So it's pretty cool. You choose which one you can take, or you can jump off from one to the other. Pretty neat. I like that. Pretty insane. Very good. Next is the third lap, and now we're on to the space station section of the third lap. The third lap is now a space station setting, kind of like Mario Kart 8 having its own space station, but this is now a fully fledged, entirely bigger, longer section of a space station. So that's pretty cool. I really like that. And this one also splits into 2 routes, so it's pretty neat. And finally, the last lap of Rainbow Road. This one is, once again, is kind of like the first lap, where it's just, you know, the standard Rainbow Road course, nothing too fancy. But oh my goodness, it's so grand and insane, I really love it. There's a split path once again for this Rainbow Road. And, you know, by the end of it, you got the train with everyone that you've seen along the adventure in this game cheering you on by the end, and it's really fantastic and magical. Now, the design. And no, this is not just recency bias because this game is, like, you know, the newest. I do love every other Mario Kart Rainbow Roads. I can give you good reasons. 3DS was one of my favorites. DS and GCN had some pretty good styles for their Rainbow Road too. All of them were pretty good, even the classic Super Nintendo one. But this Rainbow Road in Mario Kart World, the design feels so magical. It feels like an ultimate Rainbow Road experience. One that you could experience, like, forever, you know? It's really insane. I love what they did. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience for this course. I think it's amazing. The design, the different elements, everything to it really feels like a true magical Rainbow Road experience. Like the ultimate Rainbow Road, per se. And finally, the music. Honestly, I could talk about the music all day long if I wanted to. The music is insane. I really love it. The build-up right before entering to Rainbow Road. The different themes on each lap is amazing, and I feel like they really capture each sort of theming of each section of Rainbow Road. And the final section of Rainbow Road, the last theme on the final lap, it really does feel like a true send-off. Like the thank you for playing Mario Kart, and here's to many more years to come, or something rather. I don't know. But really, honestly, the music is insane. Overall, Rainbow Road has been one of my personal favorite courses in this game. And again, no, it's not just recency bias, because, like I said, I do have things to say about the other Rainbow Roads, but none of them have really made me felt the way that Mario Kart World does. So, in the end, Mario Kart World Rainbow Road is the only one that lands in the S tier. Thank you everybody for watching my Mario Kart World 2026 updated ranking for all 30 tracks. Over the course of 2025 and up to now in 2026, for the Mario Kart World's 1 year lifespan, my opinion has certainly changed on many courses. Some things are better than others that I like more now. Some things I don't like as much anymore. Some things where I was probably a little bit biased. Koopa Beach. Anyways, there are lots of different things that I like about each course. Every course in this game is fantastic. Some I like definitely more than others. There are some courses that are certainly still my favorite and have been my favorite since the very beginning of Mario Kart World's launch. So, you know, it's pretty nice. Overall, the courses are very good. I definitely like every single one. Like I said, I think I like more than others, but that's okay. You know, that's totally my opinion. So yes, this video is totally opinionated, so please don't attack me if you don't agree with something. This is my opinion, not yours. If you have a different opinion, let me know. But anyways, if you did enjoy, give this video a thumbs up, turn the notifications so you never miss a video, and of course, I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye!